Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Set in late 16th century Spain, The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo follows Lucia Catado, who has been hiding her talent for magic for years. One day, she gathers the attention of Antonio Perez, secretary to the King of Spain, whose armada has recently been defeated by the heretic Queen of England, Elizabeth. Spain is in desperate need of an advantage against England, and Perez is holding a competition among magic users to see who will best serve Spain. Lucia is thrown into a world of magic, science, and fraud, and the man who is training her holds secrets of his own that could prove deadly to them both. My God, you guys, I loved this book. Let me throw this out there. Is this book perfect? Hell no, this book is not perfect. There are definitely some issues that I had with it, but like any issues I had with this book, it's like I kind of honestly didn't care because I enjoyed the plot and the characters of this book so much. It's like, screw my problems. So I guess that's where I'll start. I'll start with my negatives first, and then I'll just gush about the rest of the book. I'll just fangirl. This review is essentially me I'm going to be fangirling about this book. So yeah, let me be serious and talk about the negatives of the books first. When I first found out that this book was going to be set in the late 16th century in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition, and it's like right after the defeat of the Spanish Armada by Queen Elizabeth I of England and whatnot, I was like, oh hell yes, all that good stuff. I'm here for it. I love it. And I also need to throw this out there. I have not read any Leigh Bardugo in the past. Blasphemous, I know. I have watched the Netflix adaptation of Shadow and Bone. I love that. I have all of the Shadow and Bone books, all of the Grisha-verse books. I have all of them. I'm dying to read all of them, so it's kind of bizarre that this is my first experience with Leigh Bardugo. So yeah, let's kind of throw that out there too, that this is my first experience with Leigh Bardugo. And this is my takeaway from the book, unfortunately, you guys. A historical fiction writer, Leigh Bardugo is not. And I don't want that to sound too terribly mean, because I think Leigh Bardugo, she definitely tried her best. The thing with historical fiction as a genre is a niche, and it's very particular with how you need to kind of structure it and write it, and it requires so much attention to detail, just the nuance of depth and detail when it comes to historical accuracy and research and all that stuff. Historical fiction writing is hard. It is very hard. I feel like historical fiction writing is perhaps the hardest genre to write, because if you do something wrong, there's going to be people calling you out on it. You know, a science fiction writer has the great joy, and fantasy writers, science fiction and fantasy writers have the great job of, they can just come up with any bullshit they want and people are going to buy into it, you know. But historical fiction, you really got to be specific about stuff, and more than anything, you have to immerse your reader into whatever historical era it may be. And unfortunately, I just never really felt immersed in the historical detail in this book. I felt immersed within like the plot and the characters, which is good. You know, it's very good that I was immersed into the plot and the characters, but I was not immersed into the historical angle of this book, unfortunately. There was just something that felt lacking, and I don't want to say lazy. You know, I don't want to say lazy, because I think lazy is way too strong of a word, because in Leigh Bardugo's author notes, she does list off all of the research that she did, all the books she read, all of the articles, people that she talked to, you know. So she definitely did her research, and I applaud her for the attempt. You know what I mean? Once again, historical fiction writing is hard, and that is a genre that I spend probably over 50% of my reading time on. Let's be real. And it did. I just never really quite felt immersed into the historical angle of this book. It's kind of hard to describe. It just felt like there was something lacking. I never got a really good sense of like Luzia's surroundings. I never got a good sense of like her clothing or her hair. I mean, there's a lot of talk of her thick, dark, curly hair. You know, oh, the braiding of her hair. Oh my goodness. I mean, things like that. You know, clothing, the surroundings, things that characters are interacting with. You know, objects. It's just really hard to explain unless you're someone who's like me and you have read a tremendous amount of historical fiction book. It's like, you know, the little things you're supposed to be looking for in a book with history. So that's what I'm saying, that historical fiction writer Leigh Bardugo is not, unfortunately, but I definitely really seriously applaud her attempts at it, and I'm totally here if she wants to write some more historical based books. I'm totally here for it. Because this is like a nice little start, you know, to kind of reach out and get a feel for her, what historical fiction is like as a genre. And then my other issue that I took with this book really quickly here, and I actually forgot to write this in my written review on Goodreads, it wasn't until I was looking through other people's reviews and I was like, oh yeah, that was something that was kind of lacking for me too. This book is very heavy on magic and whatnot, obviously, and there was something about the use of magic in here, the grandeur and display of magic, that was also lacking to me, weirdly enough. It felt really mild and tame. Luzia and other characters who are magical would sit and do wild and crazy things, and we were told their magic was all wild and crazy and impressive, but me, the reader, I didn't really feel impressed with the magic. Is it just me? Did anybody else feel like overwhelmed with the magic in here? Because I certainly did not feel overwhelmed. I didn't feel impressed. It, like I said, it felt very mild and tame for some bizarre reason with the magic. When I went into this book expecting more. I was expecting grandeur and pomp and circumstance and just wild and crazy displays of it, and it wasn't that at all. It was just very minimal in a weird sort of way. So yeah, that's the two big negatives for me when it comes to this book, is kind of the lack of the historical detail, that the lack of the historical detail that I didn't feel entirely immersed, and then just the underwhelming nature of the use of magic in the book as well. So like I said, let's move on from my negatives, because I'm just going to spend the rest of this video just fangirling about everything else that I freaking loved about this book, because the things that I took issue with, I don't care. So, as I said, this book is taking place after, like, the defeat of the Spanish Armada in late 16th century Spain. I definitely appreciated that angle, you know, giving us a nice, good, firm context of where we're at in the timeline of events, of historical events. I was definitely really here for that. As far as, like, the characters go, for the most part, I really loved and enjoyed the characters, even like the supporting characters. This book, it's not a very long book. I think that's maybe a slight downside to the book. I feel like this book could have been massively longer, to be quite honest, and I would have been just loving it. There's quite a huge supporting cast in this book, and everybody kind of has their moments to shine. Everybody has their moments, how they incorporate into the overall larger context and narrative of the story. So yeah, really highly enjoyable supporting characters. But yeah, why you are reading this book, you guys, this is why you read this book. It is for the core relationship that is at the heart of this novel. That's why we're all here. Let's be real. So before I talk about the relationship in general, our main heroine, our main protagonist, Luzia, she's kind of your typical type of heroine in this sort of world. And here's another thing. This is supposed to be an adult historical fiction book, but it still, to me, comes across more like young adult historical fiction, and I don't want that to be taken in like a too negative of a way. I don't really mean it negatively, but the way Luzia is, she's coming across more like a young adult heroine than like an adult female heroine, if that makes any sort of sense. Luzia definitely has like her spunk and her desire to rise above her station, but kind of understanding her place, like, I'm not going to be able to rise above my station. That's never going to happen, but I can dream and fantasize about it. And there's a couple different things with Lucia as a character. She is definitely hiding her true identity in this entire book. A couple different versions of her identity, if you will, because not only can she use magic in this world, which is kind of an up and down sort of thing, like you got to be careful with your magic because you don't want it to be too like divine, then that's blasphemous, but then you don't want it to be too like satanic because then that's blasphemous as well. You got to have this nice little divide with your magic so that way it doesn't come across as like heresy. You know, you don't want to be too like God or devil. So she's hiding that aspect, that she's magical. She can use that because she's just a kitchen maid. That's all she is. She's a kitchen maid. She just works quietly. She sticks to herself down in the kitchens of her mistress's house. But the other aspect of her identity is that she's also Jewish, you guys. And like I said, and I keep repeating, this is set during the Spanish Inquisition, which ran for quite a lengthy amount of time in Spain, because I'm not entirely sure of the details of the Spanish Inquisition, but I believe it pretty much kind of started under the reign of like Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, you know, like back in like the late or maybe mid 1400s, something like that. So the fact that Lucia is Jewish in this book is also a pretty big deal because to the Spanish Inquisition, that's a big no. So she's hiding a lot. She's kind of facing this identity crisis throughout the entire book. Like, who is she? Who does she want to be? Does she want to hide? Does she not want to hide? Is she tired of running? So I love Lucia as our main protagonist. I found her believable. She is. Guys, she's way too freaking modern of a female during this time period. But once again, who cares? I don't care. I loved her. Now, let's move on into her love interest. Now, you guys, I'm probably about to make a fool of myself because I cannot pronounce his name. I got on numerous pronunciation guides how to pronounce our main love interest, his name. I kept trying to find pronunciation, how to pronounce his name, and I kept getting like different variations of the pronunciation, and nothing ever really was sitting right with me with the pronunciation. And I found one that sounded like it was probably the most accurate, but me with my really lame, dull American accent, I kept trying to pronounce what I was hearing from the pronunciation guide. I was trying to pronounce it, and my dull, lame American accent was making it really terrible. I couldn't get my tongue to move the way that I think it needed to move to pronounce the certain syllables of his name. I'm kind of embarrassed about that. The way his name looks, it looks like Saint Angel. And for the sake of this video, so I can talk about him, I'm just going to call him Saint Angel, even though I think that is the total wrong pronunciation of his name. Now, please, for the love of God, if somebody has a better accurate description how to pronounce Saint Angel's name, please in the comments below, like, enunciate it out for me, like, phonetically, because I just, for the life of me, like I said, I couldn't get my tongue to move the way that I think the pronunciation guide was wanting me to move my tongue to pronounce it. And yeah, I kept repeating his name over and over and over again to the point that I was like, what am I trying to say anymore? Did anybody else have that same problem with Saint Angel? Please let me know. Like I said, I do apologize in advance if I am totally butchering the pronunciation of Saint Angel's name, but I mean, that's what it looks like visually to me, but I totally know and understand that it is not right. But either way, let's move past that, my crisis of pronunciation. The character of Saint Angel, wow, I loved him. What an incredible character, seriously. This book is called The Familiar. I think it's pretty obvious to say that Saint Angel is the titled The Familiar. He is the familiar to Lucia. You know, seriously, this cover design, once you get into certain aspects of the book and like what's up with this like scorpion and everything, like the cover design of this is just absolutely genius and perfect. I love it. But yeah, Saint Angel, he's like everything I love in a dark, twisted, brooding, like kind of anti-hero sort of character, because I am a sucker for that sort of character. He's oddly attractive. He's kind of scary in his own way. He's weirdly attracted to Lucia for reasons he can't quite explain. And the big thing about Saint Angel's character, because I don't want to get into too many spoilers with him, because that's kind of part of the fun of what does this all mean? The familiar, you know, what does that all mean exactly? How did he become the way that he became? He has such a really great and interesting backstory that gets revealed kind of more near the middle of the book. Like I said, I don't want to spoil it because it's really fun to kind of, once he finally starts breaking it down, because Lucia is, you know, she's constantly having questions like, what's up with you? You're really strange and weird, and you seem older than what you are, you know, hint, hint. So yeah, Saint Angel was a blast. I loved him. Yeah, he's dark, twisted, brooding. There's a lot of deep, dark backstory trauma that he's facing. I loved the relationship with Lucia and Saint Angel. Seriously, for the love of God, I loved it. And I was already fantasy casting. You guys, I'm going to go off on a brief tangent here. I was already fantasy casting Saint Angel. This review, I am filming this review here in like the midpoint of July of 2024. So yeah, whenever this video finally gets uploaded on YouTube, that's going to give you a good indicator of how long it takes me to get these videos uploaded on YouTube. But yeah, I'm filming this video here in July of 2024. House of the Dragon is on right now. And I don't know if I'm just so obsessed with House of the Dragon right now, but my fantasy casting for Saint Angel, you guys, go with me here, is Ewan Mitchell, who plays Aemond Targaryen. Yes, the guy with the eye patch, that guy. I was just looking at some pictures of him on the internet one day and looking at like the season 2 premiere of House of the Dragon, like the red carpet event, and just the way he looked at that premiere, I was like, oh my fucking God, that's Saint Angel. That's like how exactly I was picturing Saint Angel in my head, like really tall, lanky, just the really white blonde hair, the sharp features, the sharp angles of his face. I was like, Ewan Mitchell is my fantasy casting for Saint Angel. If Netflix decides to turn this into a show, please, for the love of God, for me, even if it's just for me, please cast Ewan Mitchell, please. Like I said, I don't know if it's because I was in the middle of watching House of the Dragon while I was reading this book, and that's what influenced my fantasy casting. Who knows? But either way, I can gush about how much I loved Lucia and Saint Angel. Yeah, guys, they were perfection. I was here for all of the drama and the angst. So to conclude, yeah, guys, I really thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun. I was really engaged with the plot and the characters. And I mean, yeah, I've not really gone into a lot of the plot, but think about it this way. This book is a weird matchup of like the Hunger Games and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Probably more like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, to be quite honest, because like with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, that book takes place during like the Napoleonic Wars, and it's about like two magicians who are competing against each other, and they're trying to help out the cause of the Napoleonic War in their own different ways. So yeah, that's kind of a similar sort of thing going on in this book. I definitely was getting a lot of heavy vibes of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. You know, about there's this competition going on. The secretary to the King of Spain, Antonio Perez, who's a real historical figure. Yeah, he's pissed off about the defeat of the Spanish Armada by Queen Elizabeth I, and yeah, he's like, okay, we need a tactical advantage here. Let's find some people who can use magic, and we'll get an advantage, you know. So that's kind of the whole thing. The whole running plot is all about all of these magic users trying to prove their worth and prove that their magic is real and not a fraud. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's where we get a lot of interesting angles going on in this book. You know, what is science? What is magic? Who is a fraud? Who's not a fraud? You know, what is illusion? So I loved all that. Plus the religious angle. I love the religious angle in this book too, because once again, the people who do have magic, they gotta be careful, because you don't want your powers to seem too God-given, because that would be kind of blasphemous. But then you don't want it to be too satanic feeling, because that would be blasphemous as well. So you do, once again, it's taking place during the Spanish Inquisition, where, yeah, anything heretical, you were instantly going to be like tortured and burned at the stake. So Lucia and Saint Angel have to really be careful with their abilities and how they demonstrate their abilities, or else they're going to be accused of heresy. So I loved all of that. I loved kind of the competition angle of the book, and we get to see other magic users and Lucia's relationship with all of them, and how they're trying to compete against one another, and kind of outmaneuver, and like, I have this special gift, ha ha ha, can you beat me with yours? So I love that. I really enjoyed kind of the religious turmoil and drama going on, brewing in the background, which was a real historical thing. So I did. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, yeah, guys. It's not perfect, like I said. It definitely is lacking in the historical fiction angle, and there's something kind of underwhelming about the magic at times. But I think you're just here for the ride. You know, you're here for the ride to enjoy the plot and to enjoy these characters. I'm very curious if Leigh Bardugo might spin this out into another book. I would not complain if she did, because I think there's definitely potential to flesh this out. But as a standalone, it definitely totally works, and I highly recommend it if you've enjoyed Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse. Like I said, I've not read those yet, but I'm excited to. If you've enjoyed those, if you are interested, you know, in this historical type of fiction, you know, kind of leave it up to you how you're going to enjoy it. But yeah, I thoroughly recommend this book. I loved it. So you guys, that is it for my thoughts and feelings on The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. In the comments below, have you guys read this book? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Just let me know your thoughts down below. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye, guys.